I want you to understand this. I've talked about getting to a peak and looking out there in the great beyond. And you might see that there's just another peak there, but you may not. Your peak may be the first peak you have to climb. And yet you're sitting there. So there's a place in Mount Everest called the halfway house. It's called the halfway house because halfway up the mountain is a luxurious, resort there. Because some of you are looking at the peak of Mount Everest and you haven't even started left base camp because you're thinking the climb is too much and you have no idea how tall your mountain is. It's not Mount Everest. That's my mountain. Your mountain is not Mount Everest. Your mountain might be nothing. But you're too scared to get the base of the mountain and say, I'm going to climb this sucker. And so there's a place in Mount Everest called Halfway House. And what happens is these climbers, they have the vision of going to the top of Mount Everest. They have this vision. They spent years exercising and energy and training and education and building up all the money and the supplies and everything. And they go out there and they get at the base camp of Mount Everest and they start climbing and they get to the halfway house. I was at the halfway house. That was my halfway house a couple months ago. And you get to the halfway house, and all of a sudden it's warm in there. It's toasty. They got the fire going. They're drinking hot toddies, martinis. They're having a little bit of food, and they're resting and they're relaxing. And they fought hard to get to. It took a lot to get to the halfway. It took me a lot to get to my halfway house. It took me a lot. It took them a lot to get there. It's just not like you get in the car and you drive the halfway up. No, it's halfway up the mountain. So you have to climb. You got to go through snow. You have to work your ass off to get to the halfway house. But what happens is they get comfortable. And then they think about it getting out there in the cold and they know that next climb is going to be challenging. They know that next climb is going to be bitter cold. The oxygen levels are going to be slim. If you've ever seen them, they carry oxygen bottles on their back. They don't have any food. They got oxygen. And they're climbing up the snow and they're just going so slow. And the people sit there at the halfway house and they get comfortable. They get comfortable. And you know what happens? Most of them don't even walk out the door. Well, that's not bad. I made it here. I'm at the half, and all their other buddies are sitting around, all the other quitters, all the other people that gave up, they're sitting around patting each other on the back and, yeah, you made it here. And they're all comfortable. Why? Because misery likes company. And you know what? And all of a sudden they're all sitting around and they're all happy. They're drinking their hot toddies. They're eating food. They're sitting by the campfire. And all of a sudden they hear a big ding, ding, and the place goes silent. Because that ding is somebody else that made it to the top. And they think about themselves, Rick, I could have been there. It wasn't that long since this morning when they left. And instead I'm sitting here in the comfort and the misery and my own sorrow thinking, I got a toe ache. I hurt my, and they're thinking they settled for. And then there was a few that made it to the top. And they're thinking about they could have been there because it wasn't that long. They're not thinking about the struggle it took to get there. At this point in time, they're thinking about the pain of regret. The pain of discipline is temporary. The pain of regret lasts life. These people settled for it, and I was going to settle for it. Have you settled for it? Where in your life have you settled for it? Have you stopped growing? Have you stopped going where you need to go? What in your life have you done where you've stopped trying and you look back and said, I could have done better. I could have been that. I could have done this. I could have been there. And then you look back one day and somebody might be looking at me. I heard it while I was speaking in Cabo. Let me tell you, I heard it while I was speaking in Cabo. There was a couple on the stage just really close to the stage. I don't remember seeing them because I just heard it. I was in a zone and I heard them say, are you kidding me? We've been here longer than him. We've sold hundreds of homes and we don't have nothing for revenue share. You know what? They got to a halfway house because they didn't think that they could. They got at the foot of that mountain and said, I don't need to climb that mountain. And then somebody was weaker with them, somebody that didn't have the talent as them, they went ahead and went up there and rang that bell of going to the summit. See, they don't ring the bell at the summit. The halfway house rings the bell at the summit saying somebody got there because they got radios and everything. Don't let this be your halfway house. Don't let real estate be your halfway house. Don't just get stuck at base camp. Because why? Because you're destined for greatness. You're destined for more. And people need you to move forward. You're not holding them back because we all, hey, look, if I quit and you quit, that's you. That's all you. I don't take responsibility for that. But I do take responsibility if I do not move forward and bring you with me. That's my thing. That may be your thing. You might say, Jeffrey says, hey, look, Vincent, you can quit and I don't care. I'm moving on anyways. And that's where you need to be.